be without John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Eric Gordon, and James Harden if he had his way. Well, he's not having his way, not at least yet. And when you are a great player, Stan, you get highlights.
Yep.
Like James Harden, great player. When you put up a stink like Harden has, you get highlights. And he finds Christian Wood right there for the dunk. And when you're a great player who puts up a stink like Harden has and has a game like he has, I mean, you get a lot of highlights. Harden to Sterling Brown. Harden scored or assisted on 25 of the Rockets' 31 first-quarter points. Houston was up 10 at the break. CJ McCollum, third quarter. 14 points, 4 of 7 from 3. All hopped up on whatever they're pouring in the Willamette Valley.
I mean, either one of them can get you when they get on.
Yeah. McCollum. Cool. All right. They're locked up in a tight one. $1:39 left. Rockets down 4. Tate finds Wood. Wood had 31. Just in from Detroit. Next Rockets possession. Harden says, let's go to him. It's working. Wood ties the game. Under a minute to go. Big Sky. Damian Lillard.
That's the other one I was talking about.
Yeah, he had 32. Blazers up 2. Next possession. Harden goes step back and then goes by and goes to the hole with Soul. That's what Harden does. 25 seconds left. Harden to the basket. Throws it to nobody in the first row because nobody's in the first row. Harden loses the ball, pushes the ball out of bounds. Bad break for the Rockets. Blazers chance. Lillard drives, fade away. No, misses the shot. We go into overtime. 50 seconds left. Rockets down 3. Harden. Oh. Did I mention he had 44? Oh. All tied at 123. I told you this was unreal. Under 40 to play. Rip City! Lillard. Why am I yelling? Because I get excited. Trailblazers up 2. Next Rockets possession. 25 seconds to play. Harden. Oh, step back. Bobby Jack.
Cut it out.
17 assists for Harden to go with his 44. Lillard to McCollum. Did I tell you? McCollum had 44 also. Trailblazers take a 2-point lead. Last chance for the Rockets. 6 seconds left. Harden gets inside. And Robert Covington says, you remember me, Holmes? Used to be on the same team. Portland holds on to win. 128-126. What a game.
Big fella did a great job of setting screens up high, allowing me to get downhill. Their big was sitting in the drop, so I just tried to attack him and put them in a tough position.
Well, your offense was a huge reason for this win tonight, but in the second half, after halftime, you guys came out a little bit more aggressive defensively. Was that something you talked about at the break?
Absolutely. We wanted to be more aggressive, show James bodies, and rebound the basketball. I think we did those things. James is he's a very good player,
yeah.
And he's hard to stop, but I think we made it as difficult as possible tonight.
That was all right. Too many turnovers, but other than that, first game plan, 40-something minutes was, felt like my conditioning, could be better, obviously, but it was pretty solid. I think we let one, get away from us.
What a night in Portland. Harden and McCollum each go for 44. Harden breaks a tie with Abdul-Jabbar and Bird for the most 40-point games against Portland in NBA history. McCollum made a career-high 9 threes. He had 8 assists and no.
Who looks worse here? Is it James Harden or is it Houston as a franchise?
Well, I think right now it's Houston, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, I got to give love to my man Vincent Goodwill for Yahoo, because that's my little brother right there, and he was talking about this story from a late date to more than a year and a half ago, of course. And I also want to give props to James Harden because, listen, you don't have to answer every question if you don't want to, but he showed up there yesterday. He was right in front of the media, and he just said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to get into trade speculation and all of that other stuff. He's basically saying, listen, I'm here until I'm not. Here's why I'm going to tell you the Houston Rockets look worse at this particular moment in time. With Daryl Morey being gone, with Mike D'Antoni being gone, one could easily surmise that the culture that exists within the Houston Rockets that we're all lamenting was primarily their fault because they allowed it to take place. And that's really what this comes down to. If they were still there and that's just the way that they do business, then we can look at James Harden and we could say, why would you be taking advantage of these perks? Why would you be exercising your power in that way? And to some degree, we still could say that. But the only reason why I say the Rockets primarily instead of James Harden is that if this is the culture that you allowed, you're a superstar, you bring stuff to the table. We missed the playoffs the previous 3 years before you arrived. We've been in the playoffs ever since. We've been championship contenders. We've been to the conference finals twice. You're a 3-time scoring champion. You're a league MVP. And not only that, minutes played, playing through injuries, games played, etc. He's right up there with the best of them. So if you take all of those things into consideration, no one can accuse him for not doing his job. And if everybody wants to complain about the culture, well, who's responsible for the culture ultimately? It certainly isn't the player. You can make a contribution to it. It would be good for you to exercise that level of professionalism. But in the end, the actual onus of the culture is on the franchise itself. They allowed it. And they knew that it could potentially alienate other folks and evidently didn't care enough to reel that in. And that's why I say as these stories unfold, even though people want to take their shots at James Harden, ultimately you're going to look at the Houston Rockets, not the present Houston Rockets, the previous regime. Morey was there. Mike D'Antoni was there. Hell, they were there before Tillman Fertitta got there, for crying out loud. And he's the owner of the franchise right now. So we got to look at it that way.
The Rockets look worse than James Harden right now. First of all, this is how business is done in the NBA. The owners have a monopoly, de facto monopoly, and so they have huge leverage in the CBA negotiations, right? They get a lot their way. But the other side of that is if you're a superstar, you got a lot of clout, and you can force the hand of a lot of teams. Because the fact is it's almost impossible to win a championship without at least one superstar. Superstar, not an all-star, superstar. And Harden's a superstar. Who looks worse right now? Guys, it's the Rockets because let's not forget, Tillman Fertitta really, and he told us about this on First Take, and Stephen A., we've discussed it many times, not good enough, right? What Morey and D'Antoni were doing were not good enough. Wasn't good enough. You wanted to win a championship. And so D'Antoni was a lame duck coach. What's he going to really do as a lame duck coach? Let's see you perform or else. What Tillman Fertitta, I don't think, understood, and I think what most people still don't understand, the Rockets should have never been as close to a championship as they were. That was because of Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni having the courage of their convictions to play a kind of basketball that would be criticized. Only the most efficient shots taken, right? Either you get an extra point for them or it's a really high percentage shot. That's the way they were going to play. They'd be criticized. They're not playing defense enough. They need to move the ball more, mid-range shots, all this kind of stuff. Meantime, because of the way they played, they took a Warriors team, fully loaded, with KD and Steph and Clay and Dre and everybody, 7 games. And they had a home game against that team, right? You could say, well, really, who else was in the West? How about the Cavs in the East? Because the Cavs got swept. Cavs got swept. LeBron and Kevin Love got swept against that Golden State Warriors team that was almost beaten by the Rockets, right? So, Fertitta, that's not good enough. Daryl Morey's gone. D'Antoni's gone. Now all hell breaks loose. This is what happens. You got rid of people. You thought you'd replace them with better people. It's not trending in that direction. Who looks worse right now? And now your superstar wants out, and this is what's become of it? Clearly, Harden's like, look, I'm not cooperating with you. You got to make this move. And the Rockets are saying, no, we're not going to make it right now. Is this all in the service of winning a championship? Because that's why you get rid of Morey and D'Antoni. Seems to be backfiring. Harden's going to wind up in a position where he'll have a chance to win a championship. The Rockets will not.
Well, I have to respectfully disagree with the both of you, and here's why. Right now, to me, the Rockets, in my opinion, are moving in the right direction. They just hired a young stud in Steven Silas, who is well respected around the league, not by just front offices or other coaches, but by current players, former players. They have nothing but high praise for him and says that how he's a student of the game, an offensive genius, and it's about time that he got his opportunity. So I think the Rockets did a great job by hiring Steven Silas. Second of all, with them trading Russell Westbrook, who didn't want to be there because of the lack of accountability that they were having in the Rockets organization, especially when it came down to James Harden and all the other players and all the other rumors that are coming out about James Harden not taking winning seriously, not wanting to adjust to giving up the club life. Right now, James Harden looks the worst. And here's why. You don't show up to camp. Then when you do show up to camp, you show up to camp late. And then when you do show up, you show up out of shape. And this is what I was trying to tell you and Max, Stephen A. when I was trying to have virtual school about a couple of shows ago, and I told y'all that James Harden has to go out on the court and perform at an MVP type level? Because guess what? Guess what the rumors are circling now around the front offices of organizations and what GMs are talking about that probably had interest in acquiring James Harden. They're saying, should I give up a young star and my assets for James Harden, who might come in and tear down the culture, who might complain because he might not get things, or might just shut down